Good evening to this special edition of Meet the Leaders from the Legislative Office Building in Albany as Governor Andrew Cuomo delivers his second State of the State address. I'm Terrence Mikas. Join me as I interview legislators from across the state and get their reaction to the governor's 2012 State of the State address. And welcome back to this special edition of Meet the Leaders. I'm here with New York State Senator Greg Ball, who represents the 40th Senate District. You're always on the cutting edge of something. Every time I get press releases coming in, you're never stopping and you want now a state tax cap. Stop it all.
Well, I mean, look, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. You know what that means, right? The goose is the female version of geese, and the gander's the male. So if it's good for this goose,
I do now.
Just got to, fill it out for you. Looking to gift horse in the mouth. You know where that comes from? No, we'll get into the real point. But seriously, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. Local government, we said, look, we're going to cap your property taxes.
Yes.
But then Albany didn't take care of themselves. So if it's good enough for local governments, we've got to make sure that we have a statewide spending cap. Colorado did it. They've already sent billions of dollars back to taxpayers through a taxpayer bill of rights. We need a statewide spending cap.
How did Colorado do it? What was in place?
Colorado was able to introduce it constitutionally, and Colorado, I think, was either 2.5% or 2%. I think New York State should be 2%. People have to understand, there's a huge dichotomy between what's happening in Washington, D.C. and what's happening in Albany right now. This governor seems to have an uncanny ability to move Albany forward in a direction that hasn't happened in the past. That may not be the case 5 years, 10 years from now. And that's why we need to institute, while times are tough, but times legislatively seem to be pretty good, where everybody's working together to institute a state spending cap so we don't get back into the days of double-digit tax increases.
You get new personnel, new people in office, and there's nothing that you do it, you go back to the old days.
No doubt the Governor Cuomo one day may be running for president or whatnot. He's going to be gone. We may not always have a Republican majority that is the virtual tax cap, spending cap in New York State at this point. So let's get the good work done now so people 10 years, 20 years from now will be protected.
So you say that it's the Senate that you feel is the one that's holding the spending down?
I mean, look, if we didn't have a Republican Senate, and my election was very close, and had we not won this and had a Republican majority, and this isn't a partisan thing, but you would have seen tax increases on the middle class, you would have seen tax increases on small business, the MTA payroll tax wouldn't have been repealed, you never would have seen ethics reform, you would have seen a lot of the dysfunction in the Senate chamber that you saw previously, and you wouldn't have had a Senate majority that was capable of working with the governor in a nonpartisan way in the way that we have. So thank God we got that majority.
It's a big here for divided government.
Well, it divided but not divided. We have a bipartisan government, but it's effective bipartisan leadership, and we don't allow the petty ideological differences to totally bring down the chamber, as you've seen in Washington, D.C. It's okay to have differences, but you don't take the government off the track and stop doing the good work that needs to get done in a way that we have unfortunately seen it take over D.C.
So Putnam County, there has been some movement into jobs. There's money coming into Putnam County, but everywhere the unemployment rate is still high.
Yeah.
What do you expect to hear from the governor in the State of the State?
New York State, typically the typical recession lasts twice the national average. I think we're on course to actually change that. Well, I mean, if you look at the way the financial market is hit and the inability of us to absorb those changes over time, but I think that New York State is perfectly positioned to change that historic dilemma. I think that if you look at the people that are out there, the small businesses that want to expand, they want to expand, they want to invest. These banks need to free up the money. They got huge bailouts. These large multinational banks got huge bailouts, and they're not freeing up the dollars to go where they need to go to small businesses. I hear it every single day. So if we move forward, continue the repeal of the MTA payroll tax, continue to cut taxes, do something about the crazy regulations and fees that are hurting small businesses, those small businesses will take those dollars that are currently waiting on the sidelines and inject them into the economy.
So do you believe with this thing sandwiched in here, wanting to keep spending down, the job front is, everyone's talking about jobs, and you know that the president's going to be talking about jobs because he's running for re-election and everyone else is. Yeah. How is mandate relief going to get in there? Because it's not a sexy thing, and it's a thing that hurts, but it's not something that people want to spend their time on coming into an election.
I'll tell you what, they better double think it, because I never heard of two things, tort reform and unfunded mandate relief. I never thought it would be part of the general lexicon. When I'm walking down the street, people say, Greg, you better do something about unfunded mandate relief. So people get it, the politicians need to get it, and we had about $250 million in unfunded mandate relief. We drop in the bucket. We need the whole bucket. And that's why we should pass a statewide spending cap and attach to that no more unfunded mandates from the state level.
So you're saying to me, we got about a minute and a half here. People, Mr. and Mrs. Front Porch, when you talk to them, they understand mandate relief?
They get it. I mean, the local governments and representatives have done a good job of saying, look, they capped our property taxes, our ability to raise revenue, but they haven't done anything about unfunded mandates. So the people are now saying, look, we want something done about unfunded mandate relief. So they do get it. We get it here, and we've got to make sure that the Assembly gets it and we pass serious unfunded mandates.
You've been really out front on this issue of hydrofracking. I mean, the governor is sort of, he's assessing the situation.
Yeah.
What do you want to hear today?
I went to Pennsylvania. I met with farmers. I met with private property owners. The Republicans upstate that are pushing it better be very careful, because it's the Tea Party people in Pennsylvania that realize what this has done to private property rights down there. And I'm not saying that you can't frack, but let's properly regulate the industry in a way that hasn't been done in other states, not only to protect our environment, our water, which is pretty damn important, but let's protect our private property owners, our farmers, our sportsmen, and not see the travesty that we've seen in other states. I think the governor's starting to get it, and the extension of the public input period is an example of that.
Okay, so, but the other side, the progressive side, they don't want anything to do with fracking, and the governor knows to drive businesses, he's got to do something, because that's part of it. He's stuck in the middle.
I think the governor has proven once again an uncanny ability to move Albany forward. He's avoided the politics of polarization of either the extreme right or the extreme left, and that's why we've been able to get things done. And this issue is no different. Now, I will say this industry that fracks, the natural gas industry, has proven that if you give them a loophole, they will drive a Mack truck through it, and they have never been properly regulated because of the Halliburton loophole in other states. Let's see if we can get it right in New York State. Question is, the verdict is still out.
Okay, and we'll talk to you more when we get you back in the district?
Can't wait.
Okay, New York State Senator Greg Ball always has opinions on things. We'll have him back in the district and find out how those things proceed. We'll be back right after the break.